Hi friends, welcome back. So want to give you a market update and greetings from Phu Quoc, Vietnam. So Nvidia actually has been sliding lately. I was checking the charts out. I guess it's down about 15%. And it's funny because remember the other day we were talking about, hey, Nvidia had landed on the moon and became the #1 market cap company in the world, passing Apple and Microsoft. And I told you guys, when everyone is acting like, oh my God, it can only go up, only one direction, that's probably the time to sell. Or when people are acting like, man, this thing is never, ever coming back, that's probably the time to buy. It's interesting because it's hard to be against the grain, right? You guys know this. You turn to so many channels and they tell you, oh, it's early in Nvidia. And I've actually told you guys the opposite. I don't think so. And the question is going to be, is Nvidia going to be something like an Intel or a Cisco from the dot-com bubble? Now, from top to bottom, actually Cisco lost 80% of its value in the dot-com bubble. Now, would Nvidia lose like 80%? Maybe not that much, but it wouldn't be crazy if there were a pullback. Now, my particular opinion on this stuff, I've showed you guys a lot, is the AI thing is all a bubble. And unfortunately, I feel like our markets are just really unhealthy. I mean, it doesn't really make sense that we're just like pouring all of our money into one company. Now, from the bull perspective, when people say, Chris, you've got it wrong. Nvidia is the future. They essentially have a monopoly. But right there, I would put a little pause there because monopoly, just on the surface, maybe not so great, especially when Lina Khan is over at the FTC. I'm a big fan of Lina. You guys know they've been looking into big companies and their monopoly type practices. Actually, the DOJ and the FTC were looking at Nvidia. We've talked about that before, right? And we know now the EU is looking into Apple. We don't know the results of the Nvidia thing, and whether or not do anything bad, who knows, right? And bad's in terms of like, are they setting up software infrastructure to where you're locked into Nvidia chips? Now, from an investor perspective, you say, well, Chris, well, that's great. We want people locked into said chips, but see, that's where the anti-monopolist, or I guess to say the antitrust type of policy should come into place, or monopoly practices, because from a consumer standpoint, right, you want to be able to swap chips in and out, and then you're going to get more competition on price. If you have a situation to where like you get one chip and then say Nvidia is working with Apple or Microsoft or whatever, and it's kind of forcing you to go that way, or they come up with some sort of for example, cloud system to where, hey, if you want your cloud to work on AWS, I don't know if they would do that exactly. They're talking about Amazon here, and they say you have to only use Nvidia, that kind of stuff. And if you're a startup and you want to compete against Nvidia, that's no good. So I'm just giving you guys a couple different perspectives on that. Now, obviously, companies like Nvidia will say, well, for our software and our hardware to integrate and for things to go smoothly and to offer more value to the customer, well, of course we have to have these kind of practices. And yes, of course, they're going to say that. Now, when we just talk about valuation of Nvidia, it is running a bit hot. And I think it was like there's only 3 companies out there that are over 3 trillion, valuation. And sometimes when people talk about Nvidia, they'll say, Chris, you don't talk about the technology enough. You don't understand technology. So guys, I actually do. I'm not I'm not an expert. I don't design chips and stuff myself, right? I don't have a silicon factory in my backyard, but I understand the basis of these things. And more importantly, though, I would pose this to you. How many channels that you watch, for those of you who are mega bulls, talk about price to sales, talk about price to earnings, or talk about valuation, and then also too talk about in terms of comparing it to the dot-com bubble. Chances are a lot of the channels out there, they're just young kids in their 20s, and they're just there to hype you up. I'm just trying to keep you grounded. Now, I think Nvidia is a fantastic company, and they've been doing great technology and great work for years. One of the things though that always gives me pause though is Jensen Huang. Is getting up there in age. I don't know how much longer he's going to do this, and would Nvidia be the same company if he were to leave? I'm just posing that question to you. Actually, let's check his age. I know he's not a spring chicken anymore. I can't remember exactly what it is. I don't have everyone's age memorized. Jensen, so he is actually, oops, I got to type in age here, 61 years old. I wouldn't be shocked if he's on his way out. How soon? If this is indeed the top, and he's holding a ton of shares in Nvidia, I mean, why not? But this isn't the only story going on the market. The other story too I thought was kind of an interesting one. There's a headline here, I'll read it to you guys. It says, market shifting focus to softening growth from inflation, right? So the focus was on inflation before, and now we're looking at, is the economy slowing a bit? This is coming from Wilson over at Morgan Stanley, so he's always kind of a bear. And actually, true story, he lost his job. When was this? Oh, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months ago. He was like their head research analyst person, and I think what it is, and they never said it so publicly. I mean, they didn't fire him; they just kind of demoted him a bit. But I think what it was is there's so many clients that they're like, hey, this Wilson guy is a bear all the time, and he completely missed the boat on Nvidia, that kind of stuff. It's like he's kept saying the market is too hot, too hot, too hot. The thing is with stuff, Wilson, and this is Mike Wilson referring to, he's not a dumb guy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that sometimes markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. I mean, the thing is, like, for example, Nvidia, I've been calling top for a while, and maybe a little bit too prematurely, right? I had said all along, though, is that if Nvidia crosses Apple and Microsoft in terms of market cap, then would we be officially crossing over into crazy land. And it's interesting because, like, even when I saw it happening, and I've been telling people like that, like, people still don't believe. They just kind of think things are going to go in a straight line to the moon. There comes a point, though, where essentially the market kind of figures out where, one big person starts selling, another person's like, oh, well, if they're selling, I'm selling too, et cetera, and you start to get pullback. A lot of this also, too, is based on leverage bets on both sides. The Nvidia thing has been really interesting. There's been a lot of people taking leverage bets against Nvidia, meaning betting it to go down, and also people taking bets on Nvidia, betting it to go up. Other news in the market too, because not just Nvidia, as I was saying before. This was actually an interesting one coming from Mike Wilson. He says, until the bond market pushes back via a higher term premium or growth slows down in a more meaningful way, we expect this narrow market performance to persist, right? So the issue is like, okay, are there any other choices other than this Nvidia trade? Like, well, I mean, and that's kind of like, if you want to play the market, essentially, you go with what's working. And it was kind of like the Netflix thing. When was this? Was this like 2 years ago? I remember where, I mean, Netflix just kept going up and up and up and up. I mean, ultimately the bubble burst, it crashed and then came back. It did come back. So it wasn't, and it's like, and that's why I was saying, is Nvidia going to be more like a Cisco, Intel kind of thing where you hit this top, comes down, 80%, whatever, and then takes years and never comes back? Or is it more like, Netflix, and where people are like, oh my God, this valuation's nuts, it crashes, and then after that, then you start to look at the fundamentals more closely. In the situation of Nvidia, right, with the earnings and chips, and this is more on the bull case, is the argument would be, well, Chris, if you look at Nvidia's customers, they're basically all the other companies in the S&P, and therefore that's why Nvidia is the leader. But I would counter, and this is sort of the big one, is these investments that these companies are making, is it going to give them a good return, right? And that's ultimately what we're going to see. And so this ties into the whole Mike Wilson thing of like, okay, the only way to slow this thing down, this juggernaut, is, okay, are there other attractive options? So, throw your money into bonds, or is the growth just not going to be there? Other things also to go on the market, where we have a price raise here. So I was just reading this one. This is kind of an interesting one, and then I think it kind of reflects what we're in. It's Paramount Plus. And if anyone has Paramount Plus, you can let me know. I'll just tell you the truth. We get it when Star Trek's on. That new Star Trek show, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, is really good. And if you're in the Star Trek, it's been one of the best Treks that I've seen in a long time. Season one was great. Season 2, they did a lot of experiments. And it's not really split. I'll just say there's one episode where it is true story, a Star Trek musical. And it is one of my favorite episodes I've ever seen. It's just a big surprise and really fun. But anyway, I guess they're raising prices. And it's not a huge surprise. I mean, Netflix raised prices, and they have different tiers now, and they have like an ad-driven tier, et cetera. And this is just what it is, right? It's expensive to produce content. It's expensive to hire people, right? It's expensive to run operations. My understanding is there's a massive stream war out there, and the joke is these days is we should just take all of these streaming services, I was like the HBO Max, that's what they call that thing now, and you got your Hulus, and I'm trying to think of the name of these things. You got your Apple TV, right? You have your Amazon Prime, which is another one. Then you got your Netflix, and didn't the NBA make a deal? I can't remember the other sports, MLB, and they may be lining up whatever things that they're going for, we take all of these different streaming services, bundle them up, and we'll just call it cable, right? And then we'll be done. There comes a point where people just like are going to pick and choose which ones that they're going to go for. The thing is, and I think, and I'm not, how can I say, I don't work for any of these particular companies. I think for the average person, though, most of us get Amazon, right? So you get that Prime and stuff like that. After that, it comes Netflix, and I think that third place one is kind of the tricky decision, right? And I was just thinking about this, just talking out loud with you guys. One of the questions that I would have would be, say from a parent, does Netflix, and I just don't know because I don't watch this kind of content, but does Netflix offer enough child content, right? Youth content to where that is enough for you, or do you need to get another service for your kids? Does Netflix offer enough sports, or do you need to get another service for your sports? And this is where Netflix has been dipping more into animation, actually. Youth content. They had a really cool thing. Actually, I'm talking about Netflix now. My wife and I watched a little bit of there was a Pokemon show on there. It was cute. Seriously, it was really cute. And there was, I think it was Pokemon. I'm pretty sure it was Pokemon. Because they were like living on an island, and it was like a stop motion. Yeah, I think that was Pokemon. Testing my Pokemon knowledge there. And I know they made a deal with the pro wrestling. And the other big thing for Netflix is their international content. In fact, their Korean shows are great, both sort of your reality TV shows and also too their dramas. They're killing it over here in Korea. They made a huge investment, and the other streaming services, it's tough to keep up with Netflix. Now on the negative side for Netflix, and this is a negative side for this industry as a whole, is just it takes money to produce content and to remain competitive. What Netflix did really well though internationally is they realized after the success of Squid Game is you can make pretty good content, and I mean, in fact, the world's best content in Korea. So I'm in Vietnam, but we live in Korea though, and I can tell you guys I work in the film and TV industry. Have a lot of friends in that, and I mean, the sort of the quality to cost ratio is so good. I think they invested, I want to say it was like $1 billion into Korean content. So you're going to see a lot more coming out. I think there'll be other countries that will be able to produce content eventually that compete with the Koreans. But for now, I would say if you really want to get your dollar's worth and put it in the Korean industry. Other news coming out here too. I'm seeing the other big stories that I saw and wanted to mention. Oh yeah, I don't talk about that much, but the Donald Trump stock. And if you trade that thing, I mean, just understand it's a trade. I think it was sinking. It was like 15% for a day for the last like 5 days, but I guess it went up 20%. So even that thing doesn't go in a straight line. People are probably covering their shorts or whatever. You have to know if you're in a long-term investment or in a trade, that kind of thing. Yes, you can make money if you're trading on it, but just always be aware what the fundamentals are. And companies like that are, I mean, losing loads of cash. And just aren't legitimately valued. Know that you're in a trade. Don't get sucked up into anything of people promising any crazy things. And this is sort of what I try to do in the channel, guys, is talk about the reality of what companies are, and also too the truth. I don't pretend like things aren't going up. What's another one? What's that? Uh-oh. This is breaking news, guys. I'm reading the headlines right here. It says, OpenAI walks back controversial stock sale policies, will treat current and former employees the same. Oh, yeah, I heard about that stuff before. So the initial deal was, if you're an employee, a lot of your wealth is tied up into shares of OpenAI, and so you're really concerned about like what's the direction of the company, are you going to go public or not? So I guess they were doing a thing of like the policy of current employees and former employees were going to be different, but now I guess it's basically back the same. So anyway, that's an update. Love to hear your guys' thoughts on these things. What do you think about Nvidia? Is this a temporary pullback, or was that the top and we're going to see a dot-com bubble, or is going to be more Netflix kind of thing to where it'll crash, but then people realize, oh my God, we sold off and way overreacted, and it'll actually come back. So thanks again for your time, everyone, and I'll catch you all in the next video.